The strange reason chosen pain feels better than forced pain. Imagine two people standing side by side. One is sitting in a tub full of ice water. The other is sitting in exactly the same tub, same temperature, same pain, same screaming internal monologue. But there is one crucial difference. The first person paid money to be there. The second person was pushed in. And strangely enough, their brains do not experience the situation in the same way. One feels challenged, the other feels punished. Which raises a very odd question. Why does voluntarily suffering sometimes feel good? Why do people wake up before sunrise to run marathons? Why do they spend weekends climbing mountains, fasting for days, lifting heavy weights, sitting in freezing water, and paying for obstacle courses designed by what appears to be a committee of angry medieval blacksmiths? Human beings have become remarkably skilled at inventing unpleasant experiences for themselves. And the weirdest part is that many of them enjoy it. Not during it necessarily. During it, they often look like they regret every life decision that brought them there. But afterwards, they feel amazing. Scientists have spent years studying this puzzle, and what they discovered reveals something fascinating about the way your brain measures suffering. Because your brain does not simply ask, "Does this hurt?" It asks something much more important. Did I choose this? And that tiny question changes everything. Let's begin with something familiar. Imagine being stuck in traffic. You are late. Cars are crawling. Someone ahead has apparently decided that the accelerator is a decorative suggestion. Your stress rises. Your blood pressure climbs. You become convinced civilization is collapsing one brake light at a time. Now imagine spending exactly the same amount of time sitting motionless in a fishing boat. Nothing is happening. You are waiting. You are staring at water. Objectively, both situations involve sitting still and going nowhere. Yet one feels miserable. The other can feel peaceful. The difference is not the activity. The difference is ownership. One was imposed on you. The other was chosen. And your brain treats those situations very differently. Researchers studying stress have repeatedly found that perceived control changes how stressful an experience feels, even when the physical circumstances remain almost identical. When people believe they have control over a difficult situation, their bodies often show lower stress responses. The challenge remains, but the suffering changes. It is as if the brain quietly says, "This is difficult, but it belongs to us." And apparently, ownership matters far more than we realize. This helps explain one of humanity's strangest hobbies, exercise. Think about it. If someone forced you to carry heavy boxes up 10 flights of stairs every morning for no reason, you might file a complaint. If you pay a monthly gym membership to do essentially the same thing, people call you disciplined. The muscles do not know the difference. Gravity certainly does not care, but your brain does. Because the discomfort has meaning, and meaning is one of the brain's favorite painkillers. Scientists have discovered that expectations and interpretations dramatically influence how we experience discomfort. The same physical sensation can feel easier or harder depending on the story the brain tells about it, and your brain is an enthusiastic storyteller. In fact, it may be the most committed storyteller on Earth. Give it enough information, and it creates a narrative. Give it no information, and it creates a narrative anyway. If the discomfort is connected to a goal, a purpose, or a choice, the brain often categorizes it as useful. Useful pain becomes challenge. Challenge becomes growth. Growth becomes reward. But remove the purpose, and the exact same discomfort can become misery. This is why climbing a mountain feels different from being stranded halfway up one. The mountain has not changed. The story has. One of the most fascinating examples comes from endurance athletes. Researchers have observed that people running ultramarathons frequently experience extraordinary levels of physical discomfort, blisters, exhaustion, muscle damage, sometimes hallucinations, yet many describe the experience as deeply meaningful. Some even report feelings of euphoria, which sounds completely ridiculous until you realize your brain is doing something clever. During voluntary challenges, the brain often releases chemicals associated with motivation, reward, and adaptation. Among them are endorphins, dopamine, and endocannabinoids. These substances do not magically eliminate discomfort. If they did, marathon runners would finish races looking cheerful instead of resembling survivors of a small natural disaster. What they do is change the emotional meaning of the discomfort. The pain remains, but it becomes attached to progress, and progress feels rewarding. This creates an unusual feedback loop. You suffer, your brain interprets the suffering as chosen. The suffering becomes evidence of commitment. Commitment feels valuable. The experience becomes meaningful. Meaning generates reward. And suddenly, you find yourself signing up to do it again. Humans are astonishing creatures. We can turn suffering into a hobby. But perhaps the most interesting part of this story is that it applies far beyond ice baths and marathons. It appears in everyday life. Take learning a difficult skill. Learning a language can be frustrating. Practicing piano can be frustrating. Building a business can be frustrating. Writing a book can be frustrating. In fact, if frustration were an Olympic sport, learning new things would dominate the podium. Yet people willingly endure years of difficulty because the struggle feels connected to a future version of themselves. The discomfort is chosen, and chosen discomfort often feels like investment. Forced discomfort feels like loss. The brain reacts differently to those categories. Imagine losing $50. Painful. Now imagine spending $50 on something you genuinely wanted. Same amount of money, different emotional experience. Choice changes perception. The same principle appears repeatedly throughout psychology. Humans tolerate extraordinary effort when they believe they are moving toward something valuable. Without that belief, even minor inconveniences can feel unbearable. This may explain why deliberate discomfort has become increasingly popular. Cold plunges, saunas, long-distance running, fasting, intense exercise. Many people report that these practices make them feel stronger, calmer, and more resilient. Part of the reason may be physiological, but part of it may be psychological. Every voluntary challenge sends a message. I can do difficult things. And that message is surprisingly powerful. Your brain keeps records. Not the sort of records stored in filing cabinets, the sort stored in confidence. Every time you voluntarily face something difficult and survive it, the brain updates its prediction about what you are capable of. The challenge becomes evidence. Evidence becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. And identity changes behavior. Which leads us to an unexpected conclusion. The real benefit of chosen discomfort may not be the discomfort itself. It may be what the discomfort teaches the brain. That difficulty is not always danger. That effort is not always suffering. That temporary discomfort can be the price of future freedom. Of course, this does not mean all suffering is good. Far from it. The brain is not rewarding pain itself. It is rewarding purpose. Pain without purpose remains pain. But pain attached to growth, meaning, learning, or achievement becomes something different. Something the brain can work with. Something the brain can even reward. And that is the strange lesson hidden inside every cold shower, difficult workout, challenging project, and uncomfortable conversation. Your brain is constantly asking one question. Not, does this hurt? But, why am I doing this? If the answer is imposed from the outside, the experience often feels heavier. If the answer comes from you, the experience often feels lighter. The challenge may be exactly the same, but ownership changes everything, which means one of the most useful life skills might be learning to choose small amounts of discomfort on purpose. Because every time you do, you teach your brain something extraordinary. You teach it that you are stronger than your comfort zone. And once your brain starts believing that story, remarkable things tend to happen. If you enjoyed this strange little journey, subscribe and help us reach 1 million curious minds. There are many more weird facts hiding in plain sight, and we intend to bother all of them.